God on the Move.
I was ready to just apologize for the experience that they had with the family, because it was a terrible experience. But I was amazed to see the way that the pastor talked about the family. He truly loved his family and he cried about his family. And he said that all the church was transformed by the way that they needed to love this family, even the family was not loving back. And the way that the church was transformed and the knowledge that they received about Jesus, the way that Jesus loved people and the way that Jesus loved them, And at the end of the meeting, he said, and I think now we need to pray for this family.
In June last year, we shared a story about Compassion in Action, how Panagá is welcoming Afghan refugees in Brazil. Sophia shared how she founded the NGO that helps Afghans to get a humanitarian visa in Brazil and then welcomes and connects these people with churches and communities around the country to integrate them in society. But the episode ended with an urgent prayer request that the Brazilian government would lift the suspension on humanitarian visas for Afghan refugees. Sophia and I have stayed in touch, and after she shared an update with me this summer, I thought it would be more than appropriate to record a second episode and continue Panagá's story. You are listening to the God on the Move podcast. This Lausanne Movement production is part of a wider initiative dedicated to sharing testimonies of God's work across the world for every believer. And this is the continuation of how Panagá welcomes Afghans in Brazil. The voice you heard earlier is Sofia Nobre. She is an aspiring lawyer and president of Panagá, and this is her story.
I'm Sofia. I'm working with migrants and refugees here in Brazil. I'm Brazilian. I started a project when I was 17 to 18 years old. At first, I started with a university project, but what happened is that I started receiving Afghans here in Brazil, people from Afghanistan after Taliban came over the country. And what I did is that I started mobilizing the church around the country to be able to receive and welcome families around Brazil. And we're seeing a lot of miracles here in Brazil with the church opening the doors and loving and receiving families, Christian, Muslims, and all types of migrants here in Brazil. So the project started in 2021. In 2022 and 2023, we received 1,000 Afghans here in Brazil. We sent them to 45 different cities in Brazil. And then what happened is that in 2024, we had a crisis here in the country. A lot of Afghans coming to Brazil without having someone to receive them. And the Brazilian government paralyzed the process of issuing visas to Afghans. And then what happened is that in 2024, we didn't receive anyone. So we had a line of more than 100 people that were waiting for interviews and visas, but they couldn't come to Brazil because we just had to call them and said, no, Brazil is not issuing visas anymore. And that's what happened in 2024. I was in the last year of law university. So what I did is that I took this year to study a lot about what we were doing here in Brazil. And what happened in 2024 is that I read about a model in Canada that it's called community sponsorship. And what I saw is that it was really, really similar of what we were doing here in Brazil. And I started talking about community sponsorship in Brazil. So I don't know if everyone knows what is community sponsorship, but basically it's a model of integrating migrants through the help of a local community. So we need to have a local community that it's able to receive and to integrate migrants in their own city, in their own neighborhood. And that was what we were doing here in Brazil. So I started talking to people about it and reaching the international community around the world that was doing community sponsorship, especially because I was really amazed of we were doing basically the same thing here in Brazil without even knowing what was the program. And in November, I was invited to go to Ireland to a conference with other organizations that were also doing community sponsorship. So I had the opportunity of going there and learning more about the program. And something really interesting is that most of the local communities that are welcoming people around the world is the church. So it was like beautiful to see that church from different countries, from different cultures, they're all doing the same program and the same model of receiving migrants without even knowing and talking to each other. And we were talking about everything at the time. It was November 2024. We were seeing the changes, especially in the United States and around the globe with the migration topic. So everyone was talking like migration now is the huge topic in the world. It's a huge crisis, a huge issue. And everyone was discussing about this new model, saying that, okay, receiving migrants, it's a big issue now. We don't know how to do that. United States, Europe, everyone, it's wondering how to do. And the solution to that is community sponsorship. The solution to that is receiving people, not putting them in a camp, not putting them in a hotel, but putting them with a group of natives that will love and receive them and integrate them. And what we're seeing is that most of the groups that are willing to receive is the church. So I was really glad to see that church is being the answer to a big issue of the nations and a big issue in the world. And church is just getting up and doing the work of receiving people and being the answer to this. And that was in November 2024. And then talking to the Brazilian government, and now that we were able to put a name in what we were doing here in Brazil, the Brazilian government created a policy based in our work. So what happened is that it created a new policy, and it was the first time that we saw the name community sponsorship mentioned in Brazil. So now the policy says that the humanitarian visas to Afghans are related to community sponsorship. So now an Afghan needs to be referred by an organization in Brazil that is going to receive and integrate them through community sponsorship. So the government launched a calling to organizations, telling organizations, if you want to receive Afghans, if you want to help Afghans to get the visa, just come subscribe in this calling. We're going to read your project and approve you or not to the new policy. And Panaga was the first organization approved in December 2024. Now we have 4 organizations that are approved here in Brazil. 3 of those organizations are Christian organizations. And what we're doing now, basically, the program is that we have the opportunity of referring the names of Afghans that want to get the visa. And then we give the names to the Brazilian government, and the Brazilian government issue visas to those names. And we are responsible for 12 months of support of those families that we are giving the name. And now we're doing that together with the Brazilian government, UNHCR, IOM, and a lot of organizations that now are working in this community sponsorship. This new scenario here in Brazil, we're receiving a lot of international attention, especially because we have all the situation in the United States not receiving migrants anymore. Also, countries in Europe are closing the doors. So everyone is looking to Brazil as a new opportunity of sending and receiving migrants here. So now we as Panaga, we're talking a lot with the international organizations. So I went to England in June to an event in Birmingham University to talk about what we were doing here. I went to Geneva as well to a UNHCR event, me together with the Brazilian government, to talk about the new policy. And it was crazy. The stories of that time, it's crazy. And now I'm also going to Rome in November as well to share a little bit about, because everyone is so interested about Brazil and to see Brazil as an opportunity of sending the migrants and receiving refugees here. So yeah, that's a really quick of everything that is happening, and we can talk about the details, but that's what we're doing now.
In case you aren't aware, UNHCR stands for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, which is a UN agency that protects refugees, forcibly displaced communities, and stateless people. So that's actually a pretty serious and big thing. And so of course I wanted to know what it was like traveling with the Brazilian government to Geneva and speaking there.
I went to Geneva as actually was an invite from a UNHCR event. It was an international event with a lot of organizations from different countries to talk about resettlement and talk about different pathways to receive migrants. And the Brazilian government went there to talk about the new community sponsorship policy. And the community sponsorship, it's all about the organization that is receiving. So the main role of doing the reception, it's with the organization and with the civil society. So I went as the civil society to talk about what we're doing here. And it was really interesting because all of the countries were like talking about, oh, my country is closing the door, my country is closing the door, we're not receiving people here. And Brazil was one of the main characters to be like, no, we're opening the doors. And that's when I talked. For me personally, it's really hard to just do these trips alone, you know, like just go to another country and get a plane and be alone there. I really like traveling. I really like getting to know other places, but to do that alone, it's hard. So when I received the first invitation to go there, when I went to Ireland last year, my mom went with me, but my mom couldn't go with me this time. So when I received the invitation, I was like, God, I don't know if I want to go. I don't think I want to go alone, but God told me to go, so I went. I have an aunt that lives in UK, so I stayed with her when I did all the UK trip, but then I went to Geneva alone. And when I got there, they told me that I could speak. I had two opportunities to share. I had one opportunity to share in the big group with everyone. The Brazilian government was going to speak, and then I would speak after the Brazilian government as civil society. So it will be with everyone in the room. And the second opportunity to share was going to be in a break room. So in the afternoon, we had like these break rooms, and I was going to share like things that we're learning about community sponsorship and about receiving migrants here in Brazil. And in the day that I was going to, and I was like, it was all this praying, like, God, I don't know what I'm going to speak. I would have to speak in English. It's not my first language. But it was 4 days of event, and I was speaking in the third and in the fourth day. In the third day, I wake up with zero voice at all. And I was speaking in the morning, and I had like no voice. And I started praying, you know, like just saying, I know that's not from the Lord, and praying, but my voice didn't come back. I talked to people in Brazil. I was 5 hours ahead. It was night here in Brazil, and everyone was praying for me. And when I got there in the event, I told people, I was really also sad about it because people sent me there, you know, pay my ticket, and I'm not going to be able to speak. And I told them, and I said, no, I'm not going to be able to speak. I have zero voice. I tried even using the microphone, but no voice at all. And they said, okay, it's a shame that you're not going to be able to speak, but only the Brazilian government is going to speak. But at the same time, I was praying, and I was like, Lord, I didn't want to come. I did all the trip alone. I came all the way here. I was preparing. I was mentally preparing myself to just speak here. I wrote the speech in English. It's hard. And now I don't have voice. And I was telling the Lord, like, I'm okay. I don't need to speak, but just share your heart with me. I want to at least have peace on it, or understand what is your goal in everything. And I was even a little bit mad at God, you know, like talking and praying. And the Brazilian government was speaking, and God was quiet the whole time. Even the days before, he was quiet, not saying a word. And seconds before it was my turn to speak, I just almost loudly listened to the voice of the Lord just saying the word in Portuguese, fala, that it's speak, like fala. And I just stopped and said, oi, that's hi in Portuguese, oi. And my voice was clear and loud. And then I stood up and ran outside, and I started talking, and someone was walking, and I said, can you hear me? Can you hear me? And the person was, yes, I can. Then I took my phone, I sent a message to the lady that was the chair there in the vent. And I said, I honestly cannot explain in a natural way why I can speak, but my voice is working. And she said, okay, go ahead. And I came back to the room, and it was the perfect time for me to speak. So I went there and I speak, and then the next day as well, I could share. But for me, the most emotional part was to listening the voice of the Lord so loudly and clear, and to recognizing the voice of the Lord so loud and clear, because not only speaking, but to understand that the Lord was with me, and it was not my strength, but he was taking me there. He was with me. So it was such a special moment for me.
Just in case you are wondering if her speech had any impact, you can find an article by the UNHCR in the podcast description mentioning Panaga's involvement and responsibility in making community sponsorship a success in Brazil. But as I pictured in my head how Sophia is traveling to all these places and speaking in front of world politicians, I couldn't help but wonder how people would respond to her, considering that she's so young and a woman.
I think it's not easy, but I always say that I think the Lord chose me to show that it's not because of the people that are working. He don't want to share the glory. So, and I'm 100% sure that he chose me to do this because I'm young and because of all the situation. He doesn't want to share the glory. He want to show that he's the one behind all of it. And it helps me also these situations to don't think that it's in my strength, because I know that in a room with UNHCR and with the government, I'm not the one that knows more about the subject. I'm not the one that knows everything, that has a lot to share. But somehow, every time that I'm in an event, it's the Holy Spirit. He just comes and shows people how to do stuff. But yes, sometimes when I go to a meeting and people see me, immediately I have this feeling that I need to show them that I know what I'm talking about, because usually they look at me and they think that I don't know, or I'm just not serious enough. Or going to this event, I really need to prepare myself to be able to speak, and I need to study a lot as well, read a lot to make sure that I will, because I know that if I have someone besides me that has more age, more experience, I will need to step up and show that I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. But yeah, sometimes I need to, but when I go to a room, people immediately don't put so much respect. But after I share and I talk about what we're doing here in Brazil, and I'm able to show what we're doing and the work that we're doing, what I see is that people are usually amazed about it, especially because of my age and who I am. So it opened doors that I think that if it wasn't my age and who I am, I wouldn't be able to go. So yeah, that happens a lot as well. So at first, I need to step up, but I need to know how to share the work, especially if it's an important meeting to get funds for the project. For example, if we're talking to foundations to receive funds, I need to make sure that I have my speech really clear and really good. And once I start showing the work that we're doing, then we see that I can sometimes reach opportunities that if it wasn't me there, I couldn't, because people are usually amazed about the work and they're interested, and it opened doors. Sometimes when I go to a meeting, people ask, okay, but who is working with you? Who is the chief? And I think I shared in the last episode, my mom is a lawyer for 20 years now, and she is working with us in the NGO. She has a lot of experience in law, and she's a really good lawyer, so she brings a really nice vision to the work. And I know 100% that in some meetings, when I go at first, I know that in the second meeting, I'll need to bring my mom, because, for example, these first meetings with the Brazilian government, I'm not the one doing those. My mom usually goes to Brasilia, our capital, and she goes there and she does the meetings with the government. And I see that they have more safety in putting like a national program policy in the hands of someone that is already working for 25 years than like me. And I'm okay. So my mom did do all this really hard work of going there, talking to people and doing the lobby advocacy. And sometimes I know that I'm not the one for the job, and it's okay. I just find someone else. Or even with Africans, and we know the culture there, it's really hard for them to respect. Like if it's a man and I need to talk more clearly to the man, I know it's going to be really hard for them to listen to me as a young lady. So sometimes I need to bring someone, and we have a board of directors in Panagá, and then I bring a man, to talk to the man. Or if we need to talk about money, with some funder of the project. And then I also bring our financial director to talk, and he's a man as well. So I know I have the conscience that sometimes I just need to step behind, and let someone else do the job, because it's for the good working of the organization and the work that we're doing. So
I'm always amazed by Sophia's genuine humility. But coming back to the work of Panagá and welcoming the refugees, I asked her what happens once the Afghans arrive in Brazil.
Every person that comes to Brazil, they stay with us here 15 days. So everyone that comes through Panagá, I meet them, everyone. So they stay with us here in São Paulo for 15 to 20 days. And after that, we send them to different cities. So at first, I do an orientation with them. And we really reconsidering, shouldn't we put a man in their orientation? Shouldn't we bring someone else to do it? But we had the conclusion is that no, it's okay for them to see, it's hard to find the balance, of what will be best for them and what they need to understand. And now they're in Brazil and the culture is different here. So now what I do is that I do orientation with all of them. And after that, what I really like to do is that I sit with all of the families individually to know them, you know? So I did that yesterday, and I just asked them, like, what used to be your life in Afghanistan? What did you used to work? And we also share about the city they're going to, about the church or the volunteer group that is receiving them, the name of them, and just talk to them about expectations, how themselves in 1 year, what are their dreams and hopes for here in Brazil. And I personally, that's my favorite part in the job. And I know that when I'm traveling or when I'm doing other things, I really miss it. And it's important for me to go there and to meet the people and to see why we're doing all of the things that we're doing. So everyone that we receive, I meet them, I talk to them, and I try to make sure that they will, to have a conversation and to explain Brazil and to be a part of Portuguese classes, because the first Portuguese classes are really fun and they're really engaging.
Before we continue with the story, I want to let you know that you can now join the God on the Move community on the Lausanne Action Hub. Be part of the conversation, see exclusive content, and share your own testimony. You can find the link to join the community in the podcast description. Also, if you have a story to share or know someone who might have, please contact us at podcast@lausanne.org. That is podcast@lausanne.org.
We do have a partnership with a hotel here in São Paulo. It's more in the country part, so it's a really nice hotel. They have these really small cabins, so each family can be in their individual cabins. They have a lake, and it's a really, really nice place. And it was also something that was supernatural. We were trying to find a place for them to stay with us in the first 15 days, because they need to get the first vaccines with us. They need to have the first Portuguese classes, some orientations as well. We have doctors going there to see their medical profile. And we found this hotel, and the owner of the hotel said that he was able to put the families there for like this really low amount of money. So we pay for them to stay there, and they are received as guests. So they have room service, they have breakfast, lunch, dinner, as they are like guests in a hotel. And it's also really nice because we are able to see the first interaction of the Afghans with Brazilians. So we do have Brazilians in the pool, we have loud Brazilian music, and it's good for us to see that, they're close to us in this first shock with the Brazilian culture. So we're able to be a part of this process, and it's really special as well. And now we're not only getting the job with Afghans. So this policy here in Brazil, what we're talking about is to make this national policy not only for Afghan visa, but to apply to other visas as well, to other nationalities. So probably in the next years, we're going to see that Brazil is going to issue visa to all types of refugees and migrants that want to come to Brazil through the same program of community sponsorship and through the organization. So we're also working on that.
This made me wonder how the refugee situation is portrayed in Brazilian media and perceived within society, especially now that more and more countries around the world use migrants and refugees in particular as scapegoats for all sorts of political failures and shortcomings. Actively inviting refugees seems so countercultural in our times when everyone else is talking about closing borders.
The scenario here in Brazil is different from what we see in other countries. So we do have more Brazilians leaving the country than migrants coming to the country. We do have a lot of job opportunities. So here in my city, we have like companies with more than 40 spots of jobs just open and with no people able to work. Our society is getting older, and we don't have people working to be able to provide with people that are just retired, So we do have a place for those people that are coming to Brazil. But we also see that Brazilians sometimes just import, ideas from other countries and just say, oh, they're stealing our jobs. And we're also trying to show them that that's not the reality here in Brazil. But for me, I get really concerned when I see this idea in the church. And I'm not seeing much here in Brazil, but I went to other countries, and I was shocked about how, other countries are treating the subject, especially some churches. Because for me, the solution to that is that we had a problem receiving migrants A lot of countries, they just receive migrants and put in a camp or put in a hotel, separated from the society. And for me, the solution to that is what we're seeing here in Brazil, is that the migrant becomes part of the Brazilian society, becomes part of the country once they're really integrated in the city, once they're really integrated with the local people in the neighborhoods, in the schools, in the job markets. And I know, I believe, that's my personal belief, I believe that the group that it's more able to love without expecting nothing back, to just give without expecting something in return, that's the church. That's the main rule of the church, to love the neighborhood, to receive the foreigner. So when I see that the church is just saying, no, I don't believe that it's right to welcome different people to my country, it makes me really concerned, because I know that the solution to this issue, to the migration issue, is the church. For me personally, I believe that the solution to this crisis is the church, stepping up and receiving those people and integrating these people. And that's what we're seeing here in Brazil. The families that we received 2 years ago, they were received by the church, they were welcomed by the local communities. Now they are speaking Portuguese, they are working, and they are receiving their families now here in Brazil. And they're also together, what we're seeing now, people that were received 2 years ago, they are partnering with the churches, and together they are receiving new families. And it's so easy now, because in Afghan that it's integrated, that is speaking Portuguese with the church, receiving another Afghan. So we're seeing that this model really, really works, and that's the solution. And what we're working now here in Brazil is to make sure that now we're going to receive a lot of people, because other countries are closed. So we want to make sure that we do this right. So in 5-6 years, we don't have the same idea that we see in other countries, for example, UK, that 5 years ago were not doing this right. So it's a really delicate moment for us, because we know that if we don't do it right, maybe in some years ahead, we will have the same idea and the same problems that we see in other countries now.
The solution to the refugee crisis is the church. I wonder what other crises could be overcome if the church would only be the hands and feet of Christ that we are called to be. And so I asked Sophia how those churches that have welcomed Afghans have been impacted by this.
It's been amazing to see the churches. Every time that I go to other countries, I have tears, because it's been a privilege to me to see my church in my country, the Brazilian church, being a part of it, because it's what we see also church in other countries. And I'm sure that the Lord is doing something in migration, and he's choosing to use the church on this subject. And I'm really, really happy to see that the Brazilian church, it's being a part of it, it's choosing to be a part of it. And we're seeing a lot of transformation in the church. I had a meeting a couple of months with a pastor in the state of Brazil called Espírito Santo, a Holy Spirit, the name of the state. And he received a family that was all wrong. Everything went wrong. Everything. A lot of difficulties with the family. They didn't integrate. They didn't like the church. They said a lot of bad things about the pastor. And the pastor gave everything to them, But they had also a lot of mental health issues. So they did this whole thing in the city, talking bad things about the pastor, about the church, And I was ready to go to the meeting with this church and be just I'm sorry, I know that we said that this was going to be and I know I was ready to just be apologize for the experience that they had with the family, because it was a terrible experience. But I was amazed to see the way that the pastor talked about the family. He truly loved this family, and he cried about this family, and he said that all the church was transformed by the way that they needed to love this family, even the family was not loving back, and the way that the church was transformed, and the knowledge that they received about Jesus, the way that Jesus loved people and the way that Jesus loved them, And at the end of the meeting, he said, and I think now we need to pray for this family. And then he started praying for the family, and he was crying, just asking for the Lord to be merciful with the family, to be merciful with the guy that was just saying all these bad things about the pastor, and not anger at all. He wasn't angry at all with the family. Just love, and I was really, really amazed. So it's been really nice to see how the churches are dealing with especially with the African culture, that is a really different and hard culture to deal with if you're a Brazilian. I think we had also some experience of churches working with Venezuelans or Haitians, and it's not the same thing because it's more closed by the culture. And it's really nice to see how the Lord is working in the heart of the church with this really like hard love. You love the people, and the people sometimes are not grateful as you expect, or doesn't give back as the way that you expect. So yes, a lot of churches are being transformed. And the second question is about integration. African culture is really different from Brazilian culture, but also similar in some aspects. So they really like gatherings, they really like fellowship, like being together and eating together, talking together. So what we see is that at first they keep some things of their own culture, especially like food, but they are really open to have relationship with Brazilians. So we see that they change a lot here, especially because they make Brazilian friends. So they start hanging with Brazilians and they start being with Brazilians. So they keep some of their things, but most of them, they are integrated in a way that they go outside. They like to be a part of the activities. So they like to be a part of the football every week that we have in the neighborhood. The ladies like to go and grab something to eat with the Brazilian ladies. So they receive people in their own house. They go to different houses. So we see that they change and they receive a lot of the Brazilian culture as well.
And
so once they're in Brazil, one thing is that we don't change no matter where you're from. Here, women can study, they can go to school, they have to go to school. If they want to go to university, they can go to university. If they want to work, they can work. So that's something that's really clear. So we see that even the families that are not so open to let go of the values of men, they need to, because once they are here, they need to. We see sometimes that the man is not so happy with that, but what we see is that most of the ladies, they're really happy with that. And we have a lady that speaks Farsi, so she talks to the ladies almost every month. So she's always asking them, do you want to go to school? Do you want to go to university? At first, some men really don't like it. But once they see that's how things happen here in Brazil, most of them, they just go with how things work. And we see that women here, they come and they have more space to most of them want to go to universities, they find jobs, they really want to do stuff that they were not allowed to do there back then. I think that for me, we have a family that is living in São Paulo. They are Christians, so they came to Brazil 2 years ago and they were received by the church and they learned this really fast. Now they're working, they have really good salaries in the company that they're working in São Paulo. And this last month they received their family. So it's been like 3-4 years that they didn't see each other. And I have the video of them in the airport just meeting again. And now what we're seeing, they're together with the Brazilian church because they're now best friends with the Brazilian church. Their sons are in the youth group. So they have the youth group going to their house and doing like sleepovers with the boys there. They did a trip to Rio de Janeiro last year and they met another church there. So now we had volunteers coming to Panagá. And when we ask, like, where are you from? They met this family in Rio de Janeiro in the church. So they're getting to know churches around Brazil and they're bringing people to come to their house and stay here. The boys, they're really engaged in the youth group. So it's really nice. And now they received their families. So they received the grandmother of the family and the uncles with their families, and they're helping the church now with other families. So they're like creating a community around São Paulo. All the Africans that we send to São Paulo, they're like, no, just give me the contact, I will help them. And now they are this bridge between church and the new people that are coming, and they go to the airport with us, and they just it's so much better of what we were seeing 2 years ago, because now we have a person that it's like, oh, I was here 2 years ago, I learned the Portuguese and now I'm working, I'm bringing my family. It can happen here in Brazil. And it's like every church in São Paulo knows them because they're always visiting churches, and getting to know friends, making friends all over Brazil. But it's really nice, and they're helping us a lot as well.
If you haven't listened to part 1 of Panagás' story yet, please be encouraged to listen to episode 25 of God on the Move and get the full picture. But as always, there is so much more to say. More about the political situation in Brazil, more about community sponsorship, and so much more about the societal responsibility and missional opportunities of the church. And if you want to find out more about that and how community sponsorship can impact the church, watch out for a God on the Move article addressing this topic coming out very soon. But now, to wrap it up, I asked Sophia to share a word with our listeners that is on her heart.
I think that for me, it always comes to my mind to understand our little part in everything that God is doing, and to understand that we have a God that is doing a lot of stuff, but He doesn't need to use us, but He chooses to use us. And I'm always praying and trying to understand what God is doing and how can I be a part of it. I don't want to spend my days here just living a meaningful life, getting all my energy and all my days in things that it will just end here. But I really want to be a part of what God is doing, and I want to be a part of the plans that God had and the project that God has here these days. And every time that I just met someone in a different church and I see the way that they are engaged and the way that they are willing to just leave everything behind and just follow God's voices and to obey, it always comes back to my mind the way that I just want to dedicate all my life to what God wants me to do, If that's going to the nations and doing this crazy stuff, okay. But if it's just staying here with my local church and just serving here, I know that that's going to be the best thing for me. So I think that's the main thing. So every time that I talk to church, so God is putting in my heart this migration thing. So I just have this urge of telling the church, God is doing something in this area, in the world. And we're seeing that. We're seeing people that are not from the church. We're seeing experts. We're seeing governments. We're seeing everyone, universities talking about it. And God is using the church as a response, as an answer. And we have the privilege of being used by God in something that He doesn't need us to do. So, yes, just to make sure that the church knows and prays about it and engage somehow, It's this subject that God is putting in my heart that I'm sharing with the churches that I'm going now. How can we as church be a part of what God is doing in the world? Because I know that each one of us, we have something that like a portion of grace that God shared with us. And every time that I'm with someone from a different country or from a different church, I want to know what God is sharing with them, because I want to be a part of what God is doing, as one church, to know what God is doing, to be a part of, maybe just pray about it, And I don't want to someday that I will look back and see, oh, God was doing all of this stuff and I wasn't a part because I was worried with my job, because I was worried with my university, I was worried with, I don't know, my house, my family. I want to be in everything that God wants to put me in. I want to be a part and pray and be a part of something that I know that in the end of the days, we're going to see that God was doing this huge thing and connecting everyone.
You have listened to the God on the Move podcast, which is part of the Lausanne Movement's wider God on the Move initiative, where we want to share inspiring God stories from the global church with the global church. Through listening to what God is doing all around the world, we hope to encourage and challenge the global church to faithful obedience to the Great Commission. So let's accelerate global mission together toward a vision for the gospel for every person, disciple-making churches for every people and place, Christ-like leaders in every church and sector, and kingdom impact in every sphere of society. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, be sure to subscribe and follow us for more.